The desolate three-story house had been in Henry's neighborhood for as far back as he could remember. He couldn't recall a time before it had existed, having seemingly manifested from the very heart of darkness itself. The roof was missing several of its black shingles, various windows were cracked, several green shutters were hanging precariously from its sides, and the discolored yellow lawn was completely overgrown. Additionally, the entire foundation seemed to sway without the help of any wind or breeze, and it had the distinct haunting appearance of looking like it would collapse at any given moment, not unlike in the short story Henry had read for his English class. In fact, he could remember making several bets with Ray on how long they both thought it would take until the structure finally fell apart. And yet, in the years that followed, it had continued to stand, defying not only everyone's expectations, but the very laws of physics, it seemed. Henry's father didn't seem to like the property either. He never said anything in specific, but any time they happened to pass by, he would pretend as though it didn't exist. "Looks like a fixer-upper," Emma commented. "Just a bit," Henry replied. He glanced at the chipped red paint on the front door. "No one's lived in it for ages." "Well, it looks like you have a new neighbor," Emma said. She nodded at the green pickup truck that was sitting in the driveway. "Yeah, I guess so," Henry muttered, scratching his head. "Wonder who is crazy enough to live there," Emma said. "Hey now," Henry said with a laugh. "This place is a historical landmark." "Oh, really?" Emma said, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, yeah," Henry said, nodding. "Pretty sure it's been around since the dawn of time." His voice trailed off as he suddenly noticed someone staring at them from an upstairs window. A thin, elderly man. "Well, that's not creepy," Emma said, following Henry's gaze. The old man continued to watch them as if transfixed. No, not them. Just Henry. And even though he had never seen him before in his life, even though it sounded crazy, Henry couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. A sudden chill ran down the base of his spine. With a scowl, the old man suddenly drew his curtain shut and disappeared from view. "Are you all right?" Emma asked. "You look like you've just seen a ghost." "Yeah, no, I'm fine," Henry replied. "Come on, let's go." The unsettling image of the elderly man continued to haunt Henry as he biked back to his house with Emma. He could still see his eyes bearing into him with a mixture of confusion and anger reflected in them. Henry shuddered despite the stifling heat. Thoughts of the old man, however, were driven clean from Henry's mind when he finally walked through the front door with Emma. His mother, who just happened to be coming out of the kitchen, saw both of them and immediately started on Emma. "So you're Emma. Well, it's so nice to meet you. Henry was just telling me all about you. Apparently you two have classes together. Well, had. I can't believe the summer's already started. You must be so excited." Henry would have much rather face the elderly man again than listen to his mother interrogate Emma. And the situation wasn't at all helped when Ray came bolting down the staircase, looking as though Christmas had come early. "Well, look who it is, Henry and his girlfriend." Henry elbowed Ray hard in the stomach, causing him to stumble on the last step. For the remainder of the evening, Henry and Emma hung out in his bedroom playing video games until Ray inevitably showed up and turned their console off during the middle of an important mission. This resulted in Emma chasing Ray out into the front yard where she pinned him down and forced him to apologize. "Get off!" Ray yelled when Henry had decided to sit on top of him as well. Eventually night arrived and Emma reluctantly grabbed her bike to go home. "So I guess I'll see you tomorrow?" Henry asked as he walked her across his front yard. "Definitely," Emma said. She climbed onto her bike. "Thanks for today, by the way. It was a lot of fun, especially getting to team up on your brother." "No problem," Henry replied with a laugh. "I'm sure Ray enjoyed it too. Shame flew by, though. I can't believe it's already after 8 o'clock. All of the blood seemed to drain from Emma's face. "It's after 8? She asked. "Yeah, why?" Henry asked, his smile faltering. "Nothing. It's nothing," Emma said, a note of panic in her voice. "Listen, I'll see you tomorrow." "Okay," Henry replied. "And you're sure you don't want my dad to drive you home? It's kind of dark out." No, I'm fine," Emma said as she started to pull away. "See you tomorrow, Henry." "Bye, Emma," Henry muttered. "So your girlfriend is pretty cool," Ray said when Henry walked back into the house. He was lying on the sofa playing a handheld video game. "For the millionth time, she's not my girlfriend," Henry replied as he plopped in the recliner across from him. "And you're just saying that because she beat you up." "Why would I like someone who could beat me up?" Ray asked, not saying that she can, or did. Before Henry could answer, their father came down the stairs and snagged the console from out of Ray's hands. "Being grounded means no video games, remember?" his father asked as he headed for the office underneath the staircase. "Guess I forgot," Ray mumbled as he got up from the couch. "How did the meeting go?" Henry asked. "Great," his father replied. "It would have gone even better had I not gotten a call from your mother afterwards saying that one of my sons had brought a packet of firecrackers to school." And that's my cue to leave, Ray said. Henry grinned as he stood up as well. Well, congrats, Dad. Thanks, son, his father replied. As Henry headed upstairs, the image of Emma's horrified expression continued to sear itself into his brain. Something definitely wasn't right. He passed his younger sister's bedroom just as his mother was walking out of it. She was holding a cup of water and a thermometer. Mary's still sick? Henry asked. She's doing better, his mother replied as she quietly shut Mary's door. Your father had to take off after his meeting so he could bring her to the doctor. I was going to take her, but then the whole situation with your brother came up. She just needs some rest, though. She paused, noticing the expression on Henry's face, and asked, So did you have fun with your friend? Loads, Henry replied. Is something wrong? She asked. Henry wished he had a better poker face. He had never been really good at hiding things. Then again, why should he hide this? It's just, I think something may be going on with Emma. I don't know what it is, but it's just a feeling I'm getting. I think it might have something to do with her home life. Really? His mother frowned. Well, if you think something is wrong, then talk to her about it. Right, Henry said, staring down at his shoes. Hey, Henry looked up. If something is going on, we'll find a way to help her. Deal? Deal, Henry replied with a small smile. His mother kissed him on the forehead. Don't stay up too late. I'll try not to, Henry said as she turned to leave. Henry woke up the next morning to sunlight slowly creeping in through his bedroom window. He rolled over in his bed and looked at the clock hanging above his dresser. 7 a.m. Great. He could already tell it was going to take his body a little while to adjust to the summer sleep-in mode, which basically meant not waking up until noon. He glanced over at Ray, who was lying in his own bed, blankets kicked aside, and mouth hanging wide open as he snored loudly. Henry groggily sat up, running a hand through his thick hair and yawning. There was no way he was getting back to sleep. He glanced over at his desk and saw his old video camera hanging from off its chair. He smiled, suddenly recalling all of the amateur films he had made with his brother. Henry had always judged them pretty harshly, but maybe that was because he wanted to be a professional filmmaker when he was older. He would have to get Emma's opinion on them. Emma. Henry leaned back against his headboard thinking. His mother was right. He would have to confront her about whatever was going on. The sooner the better. He thought of Ryan and how their friendship had fallen apart, and he promised himself that it would not happen again with Emma. He sank back into his bed, rubbing his eyes when a pillow suddenly hit him from the side. Morning, sunshine, Ray greeted. An hour or so later, Henry found himself sitting at the kitchen table with his brother and Linda, while they all silently ate their breakfast. Linda, you forgot to take the trash out last night, their father greeted as he walked into the kitchen. He stifled a yawn. Good morning to you too, Linda replied. And it's Ray's turn. Ray dropped his spoon and vigorously shook his head. No, it's Henry's, he said with a mouthful of cereal. You're so gross, Linda said, a look of disgust on her face. Henry groaned. For once his brother was right. I'll get it, he muttered, standing up from the table. Have fun, his father replied. Henry gave him a thumbs up and headed out the back door. As his feet slopped through the wet yard, Henry begrudgingly dragged the packed garbage can to the street. He couldn't wait until Mary was old enough to help with chores. She was 7 years old and pretty small even for her age, so she tended to get away with more than everyone else. Henry started doing the math in his head, wondering how long it would take until he could pawn some of his chores off onto her. Maybe another year? Henry was so caught up in his own thoughts that when he finally managed to pull the garbage can to the road, he didn't see the hunched figure hobbling over to him. He looked up and jumped. It was the same elderly man from yesterday, the same man who had been staring at him through the upstairs window. I'm sorry, son, I didn't mean to startle you, the old man said. No, you're fine, Henry replied, glancing back at his house. Can I help you? Well, I was out for my morning stroll and I happened to see you and The old man looked down at his cane. He almost appeared ashamed. I just wanted to apologize for how I may have come across yesterday, he said. Oh, Henry replied. He hadn't expected that. I didn't mean to offend you or your friend. I just moved back into the neighborhood and I had a lot on my mind. None of it was directed at either of you. Oh, Henry repeated. Well, thanks, but it really wasn't a big deal. Besides, we were just kind of staring at your house. Believe me, it wasn't the first time and it won't be the last, the old man replied, waving him off with a chuckle. He suddenly started coughing and pulled out a handkerchief. Henry silently prayed that the old man wouldn't collapse right in front of him. Upon closer look, he appeared to be very frail indeed. He was tall and extremely thin, even in the brown suit he was wearing. His eyes were weary behind his glasses, and he had an enormous bald spot in the middle of his head. The old man leaned onto his cane and took a couple deep breaths. I'm sorry, the old man apologized. He tucked his handkerchief away. No, you're fine, Henry replied. Is there anything I can do? No, my dear boy, the old man said. It's just a simple matter of time. Catches up to all of us in the end, I fear. Henry nodded, unsure of what to say. I was wondering, however, if you would be interested in stopping by for a bit to help me unpack some of my belongings. I'm afraid my strength isn't what it used to be. Henry immediately thought of his plans to see Emma, but he didn't want to be rude. And the old man really did look like he could use his help. Sure, Henry replied. Thank you very much, the old man said. And what was your name, son? Henry. Henry Cole. Christopher Deter, the old man said, holding out his hand. Henry shook it. Well, it was a pleasure to meet you, Henry, but I must be off. I have a lot to do. Feel free to stop by around noon if that's fine with you. Will do, Mr. Deter, Henry said with a nod. Just Deter is fine. Mr. makes me feel older than I already am. Henry doubted that was even possible, but he smiled nonetheless. I'll be seeing you, Deter said, and with that, he hobbled off. Who were you talking to? Henry walked back inside his house and shut the door behind him. New neighbor, he told his father. He was asking if I could help him unpack some of his stuff. His name is Deter, apparently. Deter. His father leaned against the staircase, eyebrows furrowed. Deter. Why does that name sound so familiar? Well, he did mention that he was moving back into the neighborhood, Henry suggested. Maybe you've seen him before. Maybe. His father shrugged it off. Well, have fun. Maybe he'll pay you. Here's hoping, Henry said with a grin as he headed back into the kitchen. For the remainder of the morning, Henry sat upstairs in his bedroom playing video games as Ray enviously watched. Come on, let me have a go, Ray said, holding out his hand for the controller. Just for a second. You're grounded, remember? Henry said without taking his eyes off the television. What kind of an older brother would I be if I stood in the way of you learning your lesson? My hero, Ray begged. Noon arrived faster than Henry had hoped it would. He reluctantly turned his game off and headed downstairs. I'm going out. Be back, Henry hollered as he opened the front door. Please try and stop me, he muttered. Henry pulled up to Dieter's house a few minutes later and parked his bike in the driveway. He looked up at the leaning building as he crossed through its overgrown yard. It was even creepier up close. Henry hoped it wouldn't fall apart while he was inside. Henry knocked on Dieter's front door and then wiped his hand on his pants as he waited. He heard the door unlock from the other side and then Deter appeared. Henry, Deter greeted. Come in, come in. He waved him inside. Get out of this miserable heat. It's enough to give someone a stroke. Yeah, it's pretty warm outside. Henry stepped across Dieter's threshold and immediately lost his train of thought. Whoa, he muttered, looking around. A little different from what you were expecting? Deter asked with a chuckle. He shut the door. Just a bit, Henry replied. Henry had always imagined the inside of Dieter's house to look something like a mausoleum. Cold, desolate, and derelict. Possibly haunted. In a steep contrast to its decaying exterior, however, it was immaculate. It was big, bigger than Henry had expected, with a wide staircase leading to the upper floors, a golden chandelier swaying gently in the cavernous ceiling above, a studio to his left and a den to his right. Beyond the staircase, Henry could see a large dining room sitting in the back. Wow, he muttered. I guess it really goes to show you can't judge a book by its cover. He looked over at Deter and added hastily, No offense. None taken, Deter said, waving his hand. This house was originally my grandfather's, you know. Really? Henry asked. Deter nodded. I haven't been here in close to 20 years. I used to come and visit every day. We would sit and talk about everything under the stars, my grandfather and I. We would discuss what was and what could be, like the state of the economy, the impending war. Times were incredibly tough back then, and this house provided me with true escapism. Deter paused, a small smile curved at the edges of his mouth. For a moment, he appeared lost in thought. After he died, my grandfather passed this place on to me. Why did you leave? Henry asked. Deter smiled sardonically as he leaned forward onto his cane. Ah, well, certain complications arose. What kind of complications? Henry asked. Deter grinned. The complicated kind. Henry stared, unsure what to make of him. Now, Deter clapped his hands together. I'm sure you don't want to spend the entire day over here with me, so let's get started. The rest of Dieter's house turned out to be just as impressive as its foyer. The second and third floors were enormous, with long hallways and countless rooms. If Dieter hadn't been leading him around, Henry was almost positive that he would have gotten lost. In addition to his house, Henry found Dieter's possessions just as interesting, if not more so. As he helped Dieter unpack all of the numerous boxes that he had scattered around, Henry came across an ancient-looking sword with a ruby-encrusted hilt, an old bow and arrow, and a shield with the emblem of a wolf on it. "You can put all of that in the last room to your left," Dieter said nonchalantly. "Where did you get all of this stuff?" Henry asked as he picked up the shield and examined it. "Various places," Dieter replied. "I did a lot of traveling when I was younger." "And where did you go?" Henry asked with a laugh. "Middle Earth?" Dieter chuckled as he stood up and brushed off his pants. "All right," he said, checking his watch. "I think it's time for a break. Are you hungry?" Henry and Dieter had lunch downstairs in the dining room. As Dieter prepared their meal, Henry took a seat at the long wooden table sitting in front of an even larger window that offered a wide view of the backyard. The yard itself was overgrown, not unlike the front lawn, with a battered white shed off to the left and an enormous oak tree that seemed to tower over everything else on the far right. Henry found himself staring at the tree, mesmerized for a reason he could not explain. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Dieter asked as he approached the table with a plate of sandwiches. Henry nodded. "It is." Dieter took a seat. "That tree was here long before this house was even built, if you can believe that." "Really?" Henry asked. "Yes, it's quite old," Dieter replied, "and rich with history. I imagine it has a story or two it could tell." Henry looked over at Dieter and realized he was staring at the tree with a look of deep admiration. Unsure of what to say, he picked up a sandwich and bit into it. "So what made you come back?" Henry asked after a moment. Dieter blinked and turned away from the window. "Excuse me?" "Well, you said that you left this neighborhood because of some complications," Henry replied. "What made you come back?" Dieter interlaced his fingers as he considered the question. "Let's just say that times changed and certain matters had a way of working themselves out," he replied. Henry sighed exasperatedly. "Are you ever going to give me a straight answer?" Dieter smirked. "Yes, but not today." He pointed at the plate of food. "Now, finish eating. We have work to do." After they had eaten their lunch, Henry and Dieter returned upstairs to finish unpacking. Henry helped Dieter unload his remaining boxes, organize his possessions, and set up his appliances. They worked for close to 2 hours, and when Henry finally reached the last of Dieter's belongings, he felt a surge of relief. He opened a box that had been left sitting next to a closet and peered inside. A framed photograph stared back at him. It must have been fairly old because it featured a younger Dieter with a fuller head of hair, and someone who looked very familiar. In fact, if Henry didn't know any better, he would have sworn it was his dad? Henry muttered. He had seen old photos of his father before, and it certainly looked like him. Henry pulled out the photograph and examined it. His father must have been a teenager when the picture had been taken, making it a little over 20 years old. "Is everything all right?" Henry dropped the photograph and turned around. Dieter was sitting in the doorway with a look of amusement on his face. "Yeah," Henry replied. "Yeah, I was just unpacking the rest of your stuff. This should be the last of it." "Thank you very much," Dieter replied. "You've saved me a great deal of trouble." "It was no problem," Henry replied, standing up. "But hey, I actually had some plans for later today, so I'm going to go ahead and head out if that's fine." "By all means," Dieter said, stepping out of the doorway. He pulled out a $20 bill and handed it to Henry as he passed. "Here you go. You've certainly earned it." "Thanks," Henry said as he pocketed the money. "Please, feel free to come back any time," Dieter replied as he held out a hand. Henry shook it. "Will do," he said with a nod. As Henry crossed Dieter's front lawn, he felt as if his mind were being pulled into several different directions. Dieter and his father knew each other? If the person in the photo was indeed his father, it certainly looked like him. If it was Henry's father, why hadn't Dieter mentioned anything? In fact, why had he been so cryptic about it, about everything? Every time Henry had tried asking him a question, Dieter had purposely avoided giving him an actual answer, as if he had been trying to hide something. And if Henry's father knew Dieter, then why had he acted like he didn't? Had they just forgotten about each other? It didn't seem likely. As Henry climbed onto his bike, he resolved to ask his father about Dieter when he got home. Maybe then he would get an answer. Henry pulled up to his house a few minutes later and walked inside. "Henry!" A small blur came running up to him. "Hey, Mary," Henry replied as his youngest sister gave him a hug. "Looks like you're feeling better." "Where were you at?" she demanded. "You missed Scooby-Doo." "Really?" Henry asked. I didn't even know they still played that show. Why didn't Ray watch it with you? He said he was too busy, Mary replied, looking disappointed. Did he? Henry asked. I can't expect he has too much going on. Well, hey, I'll rain check you for next time, alright? What's a rain check? Mary asked with a sniffle. It means I'll catch you next time. You promise? Pinky promise, Henry said, holding out his finger. Mary ignored his gesture and gave him another hug. Thanks, Henry, she squealed. No problem, Henry said. Hey, Mary, have you seen Dad? He went out to run some errands, his mother replied as she came down the stairs. Oh, Henry replied as Mary let go of him. When will he be back? No idea, his mother replied. You know how your father is. So, how was it over at Mr. Dieter's? Great, Henry replied as he headed for the kitchen. He gave me $20 for helping him out. That was generous, his mother said. Your father actually wanted to invite him over for dinner tonight. Henry stopped in his tracks. He does? Yeah, he said something about wanting to welcome him to the neighborhood. Since when has he ever done anything like that? That's what I told him, but he seemed pretty adamant about it. All right. Could you ask Mr. Deter if he would like to come over? Sure thing, Henry replied. He headed for the kitchen, snagged the phone, and jogged upstairs. Hey, Ray yelped when Henry walked into his bedroom. He immediately turned off the television and shoved the controller he had been using under his pillow. It's just me, Henry said, raising his hands in mock surrender. Can't you not? Not when it's my bedroom. Our bedroom. Fine, our bedroom, whatever. Can you get out for a second? I need to call Emma. Only if you promise not to tell Mom or Dad what you just saw. And what did I just see? Perfect. Ray climbed out of his bed and headed for the door. Hey, Ray? Henry asked as he took a seat at his desk. Has Dad ever mentioned anyone named Christopher Deter? Who's Christopher Deter? Henry leaned back in his chair, eyebrows furrowed. I honestly have no idea.